So thank you guys for coming today. So I'll kind of give you guys a little bit of overview of myself and Top Hat, and then I'm going to show you kind of how professors use it. So my name's Erin. I'm actually Canadian. Top Hat, we started in Canada, and so our headquarters is located in Toronto, Ontario, but we also have an office in Chicago. So I'm an account director for Top Hat, so I oversee about 20 schools across North America that use us, and I'm kind of the introduction person, give overviews, and I really just get profs, interested in using, and then once they start using, they work with our account managers who support them. So a little bit of background about Top Hat. So we started 5 years ago, actually 6 years ago. Our birthday's on St. Patrick's Day, I found out just the other day, so March 17th. And we wanted to find a way for professors to engage with their students better in the classroom. So professors, they could pose questions, and they could get live responses from their students from our modules. We've really grown from that, not just being, multiple choice. We have 6 different question types, discussions, tournaments, plenty of different ways to interact with your students via our platform. It's really nice because with Top Hat, what you can do is you can bring in anything you own. So you can bring in a laptop to the class. You can use the podium that's already provided. You can bring in an iPad, an Android, and you can use everything on Top Hat from there, so you don't have to be stuck at your podium. So you can walk around the class with your iPad using Top Hat. So with Top Hat, essentially, we want to grow, and we want professors using us, and really we're just trying to build our brand, essentially. We're in over 400 institutions currently across North America. Some of our largest users, Ohio State recently has been standardized where they're paying for it via their budget, because this is a student paid program. Also University of Georgia, and also in Canada, University of Calgary. Those are some of our larger institutions that really have had big implementations. Currently at Northeastern, we have about, I think it's 15 profs using this semester, and we've had 30 use throughout their time depending on when they teach. And this semester, I think almost 2,000 students are using us at Northeastern, and we've had really great feedback from the profs who are using, mostly in the bio and chem departments. That's where we've grown the most, but now we're reaching out to other departments to see if there's interest. So do you guys have any questions about that overview or anything?
What did you mean when you said that it's kind of student pay?
Oh yeah, sorry. So I usually go on that at the end, but I can talk on it now. So it's a student paid program, much like a textbook. So what happens is professors, they just put it on their syllabus, much like they would with a textbook. And students have 3 options on how they go about buying it. So they can buy a 1-semester subscription for $24. They can buy a 1-year subscription for $36, or they can buy a 5-year subscription for $72. So that's our new pricing model. It's a pretty fair price, and when departments use it as a whole, it becomes very effective and very cost effective because the student can just buy it one time, they can use it their whole time at Northeastern. So let's get into it. So what I wanted to do today is just kind of show you guys the main modules and the main features that profs use Top Hat for. So with Top Hat, all you have to do is create an account. So we don't need to come in and install anything. You don't have to have any special downloads or anything. All you do is create an account, much like you would create Facebook, Twitter, any account on the internet. And once you have an account on Top Hat, it will take you into your courses page. So what this is where you guys can control and oversee the classes you teach. So if you teach, say, 3 sections of Bio 101, you can have A, B, and C, and it's all there for you. If you teach the same section from year to year or from semester to semester, then what can happen is we have course packs, and our account managers can easily copy all that information and reload it essentially for the next year. So I'm going to enter this course and show you guys kind of how it all works. Does anyone have any questions so far? Since it's a small group, obviously just kind of speak up if you wanted to know anything. So with Top Hat, our 4 main modules that profs really like using the most are our attendance, questions, discussions, and files. We have a couple other modules I'll touch on briefly at the end, but these are definitely the 4 major ones. So with attendance, I know every professor has their own opinion on attendance, their own pedagogy. I don't know. Why don't you guys tell me your thoughts on attendance before I kind of go into it? Any thoughts, anyone? What do you think, Chris?
In general, if they don't want to come to class, then that's prerogative.
Okay, cool. That's your thoughts? You same?
Well, I'm not going to try to force them to come to class, but if they don't come, they're going to miss a lot of stuff and have a hard time in the class. So
Yeah, exactly. So with attendance, I know I've met so many profs in my time at Top Hat, and everyone has a very, I think, strong opinion on attendance to a certain degree. Some profs who hate attendance decide to use attendance on Top Hat more so for their own purposes, just to see, you know, how many people are actually coming to my class. And it's not necessarily for a mark, it's just for a way to track it, and then you can show your chair, your director, your school what your average attendance is like. So with attendance, what happens is the student comes to class and you can decide to take attendance whenever you want. So you can do beginning, end, start, it doesn't matter, and you can leave up attendance as long as you want. So right here, I just took attendance for today, and I'm going to slide over this background, and I'm going to show you guys, this over here is a simulator of what the student would see. So it just says the student enter the 4-digit code. So the student that day has to put in 3, 4, 5, 8, and then it can submit. And then in live time, you, the professor, can see how many students are there that day. Yeah. Sorry, it's kind of zoomed, so it's harder to see. But essentially, there's 3 different options. So if they have a smartphone, so this is an iPhone simulator, so an iPhone, an Android, Samsung, things like that, they just download the app, and then they're good to use it every class. If they don't have a smartphone, they can text in their answers. So Northeastern has a set phone number that they can just put in their contacts, much as like they would put in a friend. And whenever they do modules or things in class, they can just text it in. Or lastly, if they like to bring their laptop to class, a lot of students just open up the browser and go to their class. So it's really nice because a lot of student response systems are very kind of one angle in the sense that you can only be on the web, or you can only text, or you can only, with Top Hat, you can use any of them. And so students really like that because then, oh, I forgot my phone today, but I have my laptop. That rarely happens. Students always have their phone, but just for instance. So with the attendance, one thing I did want to note is this code automatically regenerates for you every time you click take attendance. So when you click, the next day, it's going to be a completely different code. So the student must be in the class to know that code. And I'm going to proactively answer this because I get this question a lot. Well, what happens if they just text their friend the code and they put it in? Yes, that can happen. Students cheat. They can be whatever. But the ways to, mitigate this and lower that possibility, what professors do is they only have attendance up for a minute or two per class. And once you click finish attendance, no one else is allowed to submit that day. So then the student doesn't have the ability to put their code in, text their friend go to Top Hat, put it in. It's just a lot of work to put in a little code. Alternatively, it's really easy to track academic misconduct with attendance, in the sense that if they put in their attendance code, like their friend texts it to them, they put it in, and they don't answer any of the questions or modules you're doing during class, there's obviously a disconnect, and it's obvious that they're cheating. So students, a lot of profs just tell them this at the beginning of the semester, and then they just don't. So that's that.
So generate a second code, so if you're in the same class for the same day, you want to take attendance before class and after class, they use a different code, and then you can see that the student
100%. Yeah, so in like 3-hour lectures, for instance, if you wanted to do it beginning and end, see how many people left, sometimes profs like that, you can just click again, and it will generate a new code. Do you guys have any questions about attendance or any of that so far? Okay, awesome. So I'm going to close that, and now I'm going to pop down to the questions module. After I do questions, I'm going to go to the gradebook and show you guys how attendance and all the questions are tracked, so you can get a feel for that. So with the questions module, we have 6 different question types that professors can use in the classroom. And so you can see, multiple choice, word answer, numeric, sorting, matching, and click on target. So there's a wide variety of ways that you can interact with your students rather than just A, B, C, or D. And students really like this because it's more fun and more engaging and it's different. And profs really like this because then you can test your students on different kind of analytics. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show you guys a multiple choice question just to show you how setup is. It's very simple. I'll show you the different options you can do. All of them are the exact same, but multiple choice is easiest to show because what you're used to. I'll also briefly mention click on target is our most innovative, our fun, kind of unique question type that we have at Top Hat. So what this does, excuse me, is you can upload an image. So let's say we upload a map of the United States, and you can ask your students, where is the capital? And then all the students can literally click on that image via their smartphone or their laptop, and they can say where they think it is. And then once they all click, you can go and look at a heat map, and it will show you where everyone in the entire class clicked. So this is really fun for, I know a lot of biology and anatomy classes, it's great, and really in a wide variety. I haven't taken classes in every subject matter, so I don't know specifics, but a lot of profs love this because it's a cool way to visualize and see, okay, well, I see half the class are putting it here. This is wrong. Why are they thinking this? And then you can kind of backtrack. But yeah, let's go into a multiple choice. So with multiple choice, you just click Create Multiple Choice, and it will take you to this page. So professors can put title, so, lecture, chapter, topic, the question, whatever you like. You can embed code, so if you do have mathematical equations, our trainers teach you guys that if you wanted to know, then you can easily do that. And then for values, so in the multiple choice option, you can have 26, the alphabet values, not that you would, but you can. So you can have as many as you want, and you can have multiple correct answers. So you can say, which of the following, and you can say all of these are correct. And then the students can click on them, more than one answer if they like. Alternatively, you can have no correct answer, just like so, and then it's more of a polling type question. I know one of the profs I work with at Virginia Commonwealth, in their class, in their stats class, they always ask a really fun, silly question at the beginning of class, just for participation points, just to make sure everyone's ready to go for the class. So they always say, like, who's going to win the Super Bowl, or silly things like that. So that's a fun way of just not having a correct answer and just getting the students ready to go. So I'm going to click there is a correct answer. Again, you can always upload an image too if you wanted them to look at the image to answer the question. And then over here is how the grading works. So with Top Hat, essentially what most professors do currently is they assign a 5 to 15% grade towards in-class engagement and participation. So what they do is they, depending on what their thoughts are and how they want to approach Top Hat in the class, they either give participation marks or correctness marks, or a combination of both. So some profs say, I just want them there, I want them trying, participation marks. Some profs are like, no, I want them to get it right, I want them doing the readings. So then they give correctness. And some are like, I kind of like both, so they do both. And that's totally up to you. You can change from question to question how much it's worth, or you can just make a default for the whole semester. And then over here is our timer. So you can have a timer, just to ensure that you're getting through the lecture and you're getting through the content you're teaching. So up here, when you have created a question and you want to ask it to your students, there's a lot of different options of how you can do it. The most common is definitely just the ask feature. So that's you're in class, you're interacting, you pop up a question, they answer, talk about it, you move forward. That's the most common one. Show is kind of a unique one. I feel like it's one of our not as much used. So what you would do is you would put up questions, and the students, they can see it, but they can't answer it. So sometimes profs are say, okay guys, every Friday before class, I'm going to put up 6 questions. Make sure you read them because we're going to be doing them next class. Make sure you come prepared for those questions. And then there's homework. So if you ever wanted to have in class or out of class, homework, then they can do those questions there and have a deadline. And then review. So review is one of the modules that profs really like about Top Hat, especially when you're comparing our response system to, say, like a clicker or a remote that students bring into class, is you can put any of the questions that you ask in class as review at any point. So the student, they can go back to it and they can study from it. I know when I use clickers, I would do the question and I'd forget about it, and it wouldn't be as valuable for me as being able to go back and be like, oh, I remember doing this question in class. It's probably me kind of like that on the exam and studying from it. So I'm going to pop it up to show you guys what that looks like. So usually it doesn't look this, okay, that's better, just because it's weird when you connect there. Cool, so here's the question, what's the capital of the United States? So over here, the student, this is what they would see. They can answer as many times as they want, either before the timer is up or before you, the professor, disable the submissions. And then up here, it will show you in live time how many have answered and the percentage of online or enrolled that have answered. So what that means is if you have 100 students in your class, only 80 are there that day. I would just recommend putting it online so that once everyone's answered, you can move forward. So I'm just going to disable that submission. Go to reports. Reports will show you a breakdown of what everyone wrote. You can talk about it. You can show the answer to the students. For a word answer question, it would give you a word cloud. So I don't know if you guys are aware what that is. So essentially, if you ask what's your favorite color and more put the word blue, then blue will be bigger in the word cloud. If like one person put black, then black would be very little. So it's a fun visual way to interact with your students during a lecture. Yeah, and then last thing over here is our compare sessions and our compare questions features. So the compare sessions feature, what it does is it lets you compare from class to class. So if I'm John Smith and I teach 2 sections of Chem 103, then I can compare my section A, my morning session, to my night session. And I can see if they're learning at the same rates or if maybe one class is struggling. And a lot of profs like this because they can experiment with their teaching style and in the classes, and they can also see, okay, this class gets it, I'm not going to review this, but the first class, there's some disconnect, why don't we review it in that class? So then it's kind of fun for the prof to change it up in different sections, especially when you're teaching a lot of the same thing. And then over here, compare questions is really cool. Depending on your subject matter, it's a little bit more applicable for like sociology and things. So what you can do is you can do, are you a girl or a boy? And then you can ask another question, and then you can compare, and they overlap, and it will show you, what all the boys put for the question and what all the girls put. So that is the questions module pretty briefly. Do you guys have any questions, comments, or anything about these question types or about how any of it works in general? Questions? Cool. Awesome. So what I want to do then now is I want to pop over to our student gradebook and show you guys how that works. So with our student gradebook, what you do is just go to gradebook and why am I logged out? What happened there? Cool. Go to the gradebook. So our gradebook is separated into 3 different sections. So the first section is our course content section. So that section is going to be where all the questions you've created and all the things you've done. So you can separate them into folders by lecture, chapter, whatever you want, and it will show you a breakdown of what you asked, a timestamp of exactly when you asked it, how much it was worth, either correctness or participation, what was the average score of people getting it correct, and what was the average participation. So it'll just give you a quick snippet of how that question was. Was it too hard? Was it too easy? Are people having trouble with it? If you wanted to go to details, the details would give you a breakdown of what percentage put what, and it would also give you a breakdown of every single student in your class and what they wrote. Hello. Hi. So that's how that works. So lastly, over here with the student manager, what it does is it gives you a snippet of how your student's doing in the class. So right here, you can see all my students. It shows me how they're doing for their engagement grade, which is a weighted average of correctness and participation, and also how their attendance record is. So profs that don't always take attendance, they like doing attendance with Top Hat because it's really easy, and it's just an easy way to see if there's correlation between engagement grades and final grades. So also another thing that profs really like about this student manager is when, say, maybe Jonas comes to you during office hours. He's like, you know what, professor, like, I'm coming to class, but I'm struggling. I'm not really getting these things. Can you help me? And sometimes it's kind of hard for a professor to kind of pinpoint where to start because it's like, well, what do you want to talk about? So what you can do is you can always just go to Top Hat. You can go to details, and you can see, well, Jonas, first of all, you've missed a lot of classes. Come to more classes. That will help. And also, let's look at some of the questions you've gotten wrong in class. Okay, I see you put there's 52 states in the United States. Why did you think that? And then you could talk about it. So it's a fun way to just kind of start somewhere with the student if they're asking for help. And lastly, in the gradebook, we have our attendance record. So it just gives you a timestamp of when you asked it, what time it was, and how many students came. So for my March 11th class, 15 students attended, 3 students were absent. If, say, go into details and maybe Donald comes up to you at the end of class and is like, oh, like, my phone died, and, like, can you please just change my attendance? Like, you can easily just change it for him during that, at the end of that class in a quick second. So lastly with the gradebook, I wanted to mention to you guys is we have an export to Excel feature, so you can export it all to a nice Excel sheet to put it into Blackboard or to manipulate the analytics. Alternatively, we do have LMS Sync. So currently, well, we have synced with Blackboard. There is a bug on Blackboard's side, and Northeastern and Blackboard and Top Hat have been working on it, so hopefully that gets fixed soon. But it is possible to sync. I know I would say 90% of the profs that I work with, they just use Excel because they like Excel.
Is the sync working now? It's just one click.
Yeah.
Everything goes over to Blackboard.
Yeah. When it's working.
When it's working. Hopefully soon.
We're working with Blackboard. There's a bug on their end, and I don't know. I'm not a tech whiz. So that's the grade book. Do you guys have any comments or questions about that?
So you said something about sort of a weighting scheme.
Yep.
Is that adjustable?
Yeah, of course. So the course content, it's weighted on these marks that you decide. So if you, for instance, decided everything was worth 0.5, then it would just be a weighted average of everything that you decided. But if you decided, everything's correctness, then again, it would just average that out. Yeah. So that's the grade book. So what I wanted to do now is I wanted to pop over to content and show you 2 other popular modules. So I've shown you attendance and questions. So now I wanted to discuss discussions. So the discussion board is really great for honestly any size class. So I have profs using in classes of 15 students, upwards of 300 students. So the discussion board is really, you can really mold it depending on your type of class. So I'm just going to discuss on 2 types of ways that profs are using it currently. So the way it would work is you just can have a name and a topic for a discussion, and you can have responses be seen by everyone or only by you, the professor. And then also you can have participants anonymous or not. So are they anonymous to the entire class, including you, or are they not anonymous to the entire class except for you? So that means I can see what every student wrote as a professor, but all other students, they have no idea who wrote it, which is honestly my preferred way, I would say, just in case if there's a really good question or really good comment, you can pinpoint who said it and reach back out to them. So with the discussion board, the first discussion, this is meant for, I would say, larger classes of, I would say anywhere of 60 plus students even. So what you can have is you can just have a discussion board up during the entire class. So any questions during class. So if you're in a really, deep lecture and students aren't wanting to put their hand up or they don't want to interrupt, then they can quickly type out something that you can address later in class, the beginning of the next class, really whenever works best for you. So yeah, so you can see all the students are writing, and it shows you exactly when they wrote it, who wrote it, and then, please slow down. I don't get question number 2. And a cool thing that the students can do is they can like it. So if a lot of students don't get question number 2 and they see that, they can like it, and you can see, oh wow, 3, 4, 20 students don't get this. We should probably stop right now and go on to this, if you have time, depending on your type of class. So that's the first kind of discussion. You can always attach a canvas, which is pretty cool, and you can have an image, and students can draw on top of the image and submit their drawings or their findings, depending on the image. And then the other kind of discussion board that's used a lot is more so for smaller classes, but large classes use it as well. So it's more of an actual discussion. So, profs, a lot of times you say, okay, guys, what do you think about this? And then you kind of get blank stares, or you get that one person in the front being like, oh, me. So this is a way to kind of force your students all to critically think, even if they're not going to get called on. So what you would say is you say, what are your thoughts on the weather today? Or what are your thoughts on this topic? Did you do this reading? What do you think about it? And then you can say you get participation marks for writing a comment. So then what a lot of profs do is they say, throughout class or beginning end, say, okay, guys, what do you think about this? You have 2 minutes to write a response. Everyone write a response. So every single person in the class writes a response, and they get, 1 point towards participation that day. And then what the prof does is they can kind of skim through it and see, okay, I saw the sun is nice, something. Okay, Maggie said this. Okay, Maggie, why don't you explain to class? You wrote this. Why don't you explain to class your thoughts? So in a class of 50, this is great. Maggie's thought about it. She then can speak on it, be a little less apprehensive. In a large class, it's not as common to do this, but since that large class that students already thought about it, it's still a little less scary than just, putting your hand up and saying your thoughts. But with the discussion board, that's just a couple examples. Those are the ones that I find are effective and what a lot of profs like to do. Again, it really depends on your subject matter and your approach to teaching and lecturing. Do you guys have any questions or comments about this one?
So you wanted to give some participation credit for this. How does that work? Do you have to really go through and decide what you want to give credit?
No. So under the create button, if it's the way you can grade, as long as it's not anonymous to everyone, you can grade it. So you would just click graded right here, and then you can decide how much it's worth. The correctness marks, you would have to go back in to decide if it's right or not. But for participation, if they literally write anything, they'll get credit for writing something. So that's that. The last thing I wanted to show you guys today is our files feature. So what this does is this is a place where you can upload your PowerPoints, your PDFs, your documents, anything you like, and it syncs through Top Hat. So rather than having to constantly go back and forth from Top Hat to PowerPoint to YouTube to anything you're using in class, it makes it really seamless and easy to have a nice lecture. So you can just put in your PowerPoint or PDF or anything you want, and you can go through it in class. So when you're going through it, it goes with the student. So if you're in a big lecture hall and the student is having trouble even seeing the projector, they can see it on their device. And if you're in a medium-sized classroom, it's still quite nice because maybe you're doing an activity that day and everyone's going into little groups. Rather than you having to print off the activity or the students having to always look behind them and look at the board, they can see it on their device and they can work in their group and work on that activity. And the great thing too is with PowerPoints, the students don't have the ability to click ahead, so they have to follow along. And then, for instance, maybe you're going through a lecture and you said, okay, I want to ask a question on this. You can easily just pop up a question and then it connects. So the question's here, connected to the PowerPoint or the document, and they can refer to it if they need be. Or you can see on their device, just like that. So I'm going to close that. One thing I will mention with the files feature and with the questions module, kind of combination of both, some profs, they like to do Top Hat questions throughout their lecture. Some profs like to do it either at the beginning or the end, depending on their style. It really depends on you and what your opinion is. I know some profs who are a little bit hesitant to use technology in the classroom. What they do, I actually met a prof from Ryerson, it's a school in Toronto, and she was saying, I hate tech in the classroom, and I was like, whoa, you use Top Hat? Like, I was shocked. And she's like, but what I do is I lecture a regular class, and the last 10 minutes of every class, the students are allowed to bring out their devices, and then we interact, and then we get live feedback and do questions together. So some profs that aren't as tech savvy or wanting to use tech, that's a good way to start with it, because then the tech can be away for a lot of the class, and then they can bring it out when they need it. So that's the 4 main modules I wanted to show you guys. Under course settings, in the modules bar, you can decide what modules you guys would want to use. So for instance, you know what, Erin, like I like attendance, discussion's cool, files, maybe not for me. I'm going to unclick that, and then now files will no longer be shown on your Top Hat account. It will only be the ones that you care about on the left-hand panel, so it doesn't become convoluted with things you don't care. The other thing I wanted to mention is a couple of our other modules. So our tournaments module is a really fun way for review. So what you can do is you can put in 10, 15, 20 questions, and it will pit students up against each other in like a tournament. So let's say John versus Mike are answering question 1, and at the exact same time, Susan and Karen are answering question 2. So everyone in the entire class of anywhere from 15 to however many are answering different questions. So if I'm sitting here and I want to look, hey, like Mike, what did you get for this one? I can't because we're answering different questions. And then at the end of 30 seconds for the timer, it will randomize again and put students up against another question and another opponent. So it's quite cool because it's kind of a fast-paced, fun game just to review different content. So some profs, I know one of the profs we work with at another school in Canada, University of Waterloo, what he does with the tournaments is he administers a tournament on like a Wednesday, and then the midterm is on the Monday. So this incentivizes the students to start studying a little bit earlier, because a lot of the time he offers, top 10 students in the tournament, they get 3 extra points on the next quiz or midterm. He's done some analytics on it and has helped with students' grades because they do start studying earlier and they're getting to try the material in a kind of a fun, different way. And then over here is our Pages module. So our Pages module is like open canvas for you. So some profs, what they're doing is they're writing their own content, putting it into pages, and distributing it through Top Hat. Alternatively, you can put in any articles or anything you wanted, or YouTube videos, and students can go through pages during class or out of class. So that's Top Hat in a pretty quick nutshell. What I always like to mention after I kind of give a brief overview is essentially what happens with Top Hat and kind of how, like, where do I go from here if I wanted to try it out. What would happen is you would let myself know, the account director, and we would put you into an orientation. So our orientation sessions are one-on-one with one of our trainers who are a lot of them are doing their PhDs on instructional design, and they kind of go over best practices of how it would work in your type of class. So your size of class, your department, the type of things you're teaching, and they really personalize it to you. And then after your orientation, you get to work with one of our account managers. For Northeastern, it is Jake. So Jake works with every prof at Northeastern who uses, and he's there for your support. So from before classes, during classes, after classes, hey, can you help me with these analytics? How can I do this? How can I do that? He's there for you. And Top Hat, we're really big into support because we know tech companies and tech sometimes is overwhelming, and sometimes there isn't the best support. His average response time is under 4 hours, and that's something that we're really, really big at Top Hat. And then, lastly, as I mentioned, it is a student paid program. So the most basic model is our 1 semester, our 1 year, or our 5 year. We do have some departments who buy it as a department if they have grants, or profs buy it one-off if they have certain funds for it. Alternatively, at a larger scale, when schools have a lot of students using, sometimes the school decides to buy it as a huge platform. Right now at Northeastern, most profs are doing it with the basic model where the students get to choose, but that would be up to you, the professor. So I would literally love to take it to the floor right now to get your guys' feedback, thoughts, questions, concerns. What are you guys thinking?
Just a quick question. Is the 5-year license also considered the lifetime license?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's considered a lifetime license for $72. So a lot of departments are doing that. I know at Ole Miss, one of the schools I work with, their whole pharmacy department, when their students come in now, they say get Top Hat, and they use it their whole time. Yeah. So is anything, I'm just curious, what are your guys' general thoughts? I love honest feedback on maybe things that you think would be hard with Top Hat, or maybe things that you think you would really enjoy using. Chris, why don't you?
So I teach healthcare administration class, so I'm trying to do some exercises like, how much revenue would this physical therapist make if he has this many patients at this rate, and so on. So I can see where this would be something where you can have that more live, versus then do it and then come back later.
Cool, awesome. Kelly, do you have any thoughts? Or
I just like that it's app-based. I'm all about being able to use your smartphone for anything. So I think my problem would be convincing my faculty to want to use that.
Yeah, because faculty are resistant to change.
I think it's a 50-50. They're half and half. They either want their students to use the technology or they don't.
Yeah, and the tech thing for sure, it's a hard thing to grasp sometimes. And one thing that we're always saying to profs is, with technology nowadays, and I'm sure ATS can probably contend this, it's happening. It's there. Students are gonna bring their phones. They're gonna be distracted. Things are gonna be happening. Life's everywhere now. If the way that Top Hat is, what we're trying to do is we're trying to hone in on these things that used to be a distraction and make them more learning tools.
That's kind of my
yeah.
feeling about it too.
Yeah.
Have it in class, make them use it for a good reason.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. What do you think?
Well, I'm thinking, right now we use clickers and things like that, and they frequently don't work, and so it's a pain. So having more things integrated on standard platforms that they already have makes a lot more sense.
Yeah.
More detailed question. If you're running your slides off your iPad or whatever you're walking around the room, so they can't go forward or backwards.
The students can't, but the professor can do whatever they like.
Right. So then you ask them a question where they have to integrate some of the material that you just covered.
They can go back. They can't go forward.
Oh.
Yeah.
So it's a nice product. Yeah.
Cool. Any thoughts?
Not really. I'm not a professor. I'm a IT.
Cool.
I'm the person that the professor might come to.
Say,
can I do this?
For sure.
I've gotten asked once about clickers, but we never followed up on it.
Right.
I'm not sure if we're using anything like that in any of our classes.
Yeah. And I'll definitely mention with support, another thing that profs have found nice about Top Hat is You don't really need to go to support at the school that very much often at all with Top Hat, because our support at Top Hat's pretty top notch, where you have Jake there all the time. And for students, we have full-time staff that deal with students. So what a lot of profs do is they say the students' questions, concerns, what's happening, you say just email support at Top Hat, and our support team is on all the time emailing back students, and that's their job. So a lot of profs kind of pawn off their silly questions, just email Top Hat, they'll deal with it. And if they don't deal with it, then come back to me, and that rarely happens. I know you joined in a bit later.
Yeah.
What's your name again? Yeah, I know. Yeah. Paul, right? I know you mentioned you might be coming in late. You only saw half the presentation, but do you have any questions about what I've shown so far? Cool. Well, yeah. So that's Top Hat in a quick nutshell. If you guys wanted to use Top Hat, then you can definitely let me know at the end of the presentation. Or if you have any colleagues that you think would like it for the summer or the fall, you can also let them know. I can give you my card, and I'm the person who works with all profs at Northeastern. So I can give demonstrations in person or online. My online demonstrations are virtually the same. It's just I'm on the phone at my office and I share my screen. But I'll probably be coming back to Northeastern in a couple months as well. So yeah, thanks for coming. Feel free to grab some snacks before you guys leave, and feel free to come up to me if you have any questions. Yeah, thanks guys.
Can you distribute your card?
Yeah, of course.